Hi YouTube, welcome back to Darkmoon Metals. In today's video I want to have a discussion about welding tables. Now before we get too far into the video, I want to let you know that I'm not going to be fabricating a welding table of any kind. I'm just going to basically show you what I have, give you an idea of a few different options of what's out there, and then you can make your own decisions on how you want to put yours together. There are dozens and dozens of videos already on YouTube that discuss how to assemble them. They show the welding process. Some of them are 3 or 4 parts. I just want to keep it very simple, because chances are if you're watching this video, you're looking to put a welding table together. So I want to give you the things that you should think about before you start drawing up your blueprints or buying materials, things like that. So what I'm going to do is ask 3 very basic questions about what you want for your welding table. And if you want to grab a pen and a piece of paper to write some of this stuff down, feel free. Or you could just rewind and replay the segment of the video. The first question is going to be, do I want this to be a mobile type of a platform that I could take with me and do some welding outside or roll around the shop, or do I want a stationary workbench? Because that's going to determine how you put the structure of the thing together. Do you need things like casters or stringers or extra supports? Do you want to make it so it breaks down or folds up? Or do you just want to make a tank that's never going to move like what I have here? The next question is going to be, what types of welding processes are you going to be doing? Are you going to be doing oxy-fuel welding or brazing? Anything like oxyacetylene, propane, propylene, anything in that ballpark, because you're going to find that you're going to be putting a lot more heat into your work surface. Now, the reason that's important is because your welding work surface, if it's not thick enough and you put a lot of heat into it, it could warp, it can distort, it could twist, it could do a lot of different nasty things, which would be completely counterproductive to having a good welding surface. The last question I want you to consider is accessories. Now, what do I mean by that? Something as simple as, do I want to have a drawer under the work surface so I can throw things like my glasses or my cell phone or things that I don't want to have on top of the welding table that, might get destroyed? Do I want to have a spot for a vise? Do I want to have a vise permanently mounted, or do I want to have one that's removable? Because some people don't like having obstructions on top of their welding table, and if they have a nice big welding area, popping a vise in the corner, it might just get in the way all the time. Storage. Do you want to have storage? Do you want to have a shelf or something like that? These are all things to take into consideration before you start your planning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some of the things that I did for my 2 different welding tables, and why there are actually 2 tables in my shop, and why in this case one size does not fit all. My particular welding table is 62 inches wide by 32 inches deep, and then it goes a little bit further back for storage. That 32 inches deep is the entire surface area that I can work on. That doesn't count the storage. Now, when I put this thing together, I had one basic requirement. I wanted to save space in my shop. And these welders were all just kind of lined up in a row. I have the Miller MIG welder, I've got my TIG stick welder, and then I have an old Hobart over there. But all of these used to be lined up in a row, and it ate up a huge chunk of my shop. So one of the criteria for my welding table is it had to be tall enough off the ground where I could put machines under it. And then I would store the bottles off to the side, like I do there. Now, that MIG machine will fit under the table. However, when I'm doing a lot of TIG welding, it makes sense to just keep it in the corner, and I have a lot more leg room, and I can manipulate the pedal a lot easier. The shelf was also another addition that I put on after the fact. Now, the walls in the background that the shelf is mounted to, you may notice there's a seam running straight down the center. I made that out of concrete board, and it's just screwed into a 2x4 frame right up against the sheetrock. So the masonry board protects the wall against sparks and things like that. I also painted everything over here black, and that just helps reduce the amount of light that's reflected off of different surfaces while I'm welding. So now let's move to the other end of the spectrum. I'm going to show you the table that I use when I'm working with any type of gas welding, whether it's brazing, whether it's oxyacetylene, oxypropane, oxypropylene. This is the table that I use. And the separation of the color there, the green is the lower frame that supports the tabletop, and yes, that thick gray thing is the tabletop itself. Let me see if I can zoom in on it from here. Don't know if I'll be able to see it. Oh yes, perfect. The tabletop is 28 inches by 48 inches by 2 inches. Yes, it's a solid 2 inches thick. It is an absolute bear to move, even on wheels. It was constructed where there's a lower shelf, and that was originally designed for just the things that would be used on that table. My father had built this for the aerospace shop he used to work in, and when he left and the company was moving, they gave him the table, which was a really nice gesture. This is perfect for when you're doing very, very hot work. I'll do a lot of my stick welding on this. I will do all of my torch work on it, and it's just 10 times better for that application than my other welding workbench, even though the other one is the one I use the most. So there is no real such thing as a one-size-fits-all welding table, depending on the type of welding you're doing. Now, the one thing I will point out is when I'm talking about accessories, you can see that this does have holes in it. There at one time was a vise mounted to it there, and it was in the dead center of the table, so it was right in the way. The one thing that I did keep on there, that is a ground strap, so I can tie the ground right to that, and I don't have to worry about grounding my workpiece, which is very nice. And then on that end of the table, I do have a holder for a TIG torch. I did do some TIG work on this, but that was a complete pain in the neck trying to work with a TIG on this. If you're doing scratch start TIG, not so much, but if you're using a foot pedal, not being able to stick your feet under the surface that you're welding on is a huge, it's not comfortable at all. And you know, my foot was cocked out to the side. With this welding table over here, you know, I could stick my foot right under the table. It's in a nice, comfortable position, and this goes back to what I was saying. What are you going to do with your table? Are you going to be able to do all the things that you want to do, and are you going to be able to work comfortably and efficiently? These are the things that you need to figure out before you even purchase your material. One of the most common welding accessories that you're going to find on any bench is a decent vise. Now, these vises are all really old. A lot of them were made in the United States. I know at least 3 on the table were. The red one right in the center, I got that one specifically because it has removable jaws, and I can set different blocks in there, and it can just hold really, really nice. You don't have to worry about them slipping past where the jaws end, because there's that nice groove to hold things. So let me back out a little bit here, and I'll set the tripod down. This particular table used to be a welding table before I completely just covered it in vises. But I want to show you something, and I want to just give this to you as an option for your particular project. Now, if you're making a welding table, there are 2 different vises here. Around here. Okay. Both of these vises are really, really close in size and their capabilities. But I had mentioned that maybe you don't want to have a vise permanently mounted on your table. Excuse me. This vise is permanently mounted. This one is not. Basically, all I did was take a piece of square tubing, and I welded it to the table, cut a hole in the surface, and then mounted the vise to a plate with a size of square tubing that would fit inside this one. So what that does is it allows me to just remove the vise and pull it out. And I'll set that off to the side. Now, this receptacle you can use for other things as well. If you have a small platform with a little bench grinder that you might want to bring out once in a while, especially if you're sharpening tungsten, you can drop that on. You can drop any accessory you want in there. Maybe even a different kind of ice. Well, there you have it, YouTube. I hope I gave you something to consider and think about as you're planning your own welding table build. Now, like I said before, there are dozens of videos out here on YouTube that cover this topic. My best advice, take a look at them. See what different options and accessories and things people have built into their own welding table projects. Some of them you may find to be extremely useful, maybe something you haven't thought of before. Others, it might just be way too much or just too complicated for what you're trying to achieve. Either way, YouTube can be an educational tool when it's used the right way. So, before I leave, I want to leave you with one final thought. You don't have to go out and buy the best of everything to get your job done. It's all a matter of how much creativity, how much imagination, and how much hard work you are planning to put into your projects, and that'll determine a lot on whether or not you're going to be successful. So here's what I want to show you. one of the things that I wanted to overcome that makes some aspects of welding difficult for me is the amount of glare I get inside of the welding helmet. So one of the requirements for building my booth was to A, have a very well lit area, and I'm going to film right into the lights for a second. But you can see I have two overhead lights that are extremely bright, but these lights are on the work that I'm doing and they're not behind me. So I'm not getting all of that vicious glare in my welding helmet as if I were using the overhead fluorescent lights. But let me show you something kind of funny about these lights themselves. Remember how I said sometimes you just need a little bit of imagination? Well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to zoom in enough on this, but I shut the lights off. Yeah, there you go. That is the best kept secret in my shop. I don't have a lot of money to go out and buy expensive recessed lighting. What you're looking at is an upside down paw print. Yes, my recessed lighting is literally made from a dog food bowl. Stainless steel dog bowls, that's all they are. So YouTube, when it comes to creativity and getting your job done, when it comes to your imagination, you make the sky the limit. That being said, I'm going to end the video here. This has been Jeff at Darkmoon Metals, and I'll see you again soon.